And welcome back. We're officially in our first segment of the morning show today. And with us on set is Commissioner of Police Chester Williams. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Assistant Commissioner of Police Alden Dawson. Good morning, Mr.
Good
Dawson.
morning.
Gentlemen, good morning. Where do we begin from in terms of, firstly, the end of year review? I know a lot has transpired over the course of the past 12 months in terms of either citizen security matters or issues of crime and violence or overall safety. Where do you want to begin from in terms of looking back at 2019?
Well, I would like to first and foremost give thanks to the Almighty. I believe that He had blessed us very much with health, strength, and courage to have been able to police a very difficult year. As I've always said to my commanders, we are indeed policing in tough times. We're seeing a new breed of criminals. And I believe it has a lot to do with how we're raising our children. And for the most part, you find that society raises the children in such in a manner that is that makes them to be very much uncontrollable, and that the police should be there at all time, that whenever they manifest that uncontrollable behavior or do things out of the ordinary, that we should be there. But that is not so. There are always so much of us. And as much as we may organize ourselves in such a way that we can cover as much area as we can, the police cannot be in every place at the same time. And while yes, we have seen different types of crime this year, and some very heinous ones. I can still proudly say that when we look at our overall performance for the year, we are at this point achieving our 10% reduction in major crime. We're not going to achieve our 10% reduction in murders, but we're not going to surpass last year's figure either. We are still a few numbers and not according to Dwayne's report on Friday. And I had to ask Dwayne to tell me who are the additional 6 persons that he killed, because his reporting on the news on Friday is totally inaccurate. And so we are still, I believe, 10 below last year's figure in terms of our murder count. So that will not give us our 10% reduction. But at the end of the day, if we finish the year with a number below last year, then I still believe that we would have achieved something where that is concerned. It is not what we would have wanted it to be, but it is still a reduction. And again, I want to say that for the past years, the most dominant types of murders were the gang-related murders. And you would see this year, the gang-related murders are the lowest. And those are the crimes that the police can, to some extent, contain. So it shows that our efforts is indeed paying off, because we have been able to contain the crimes that are committed by the gang members. Now you'll find that most of the crimes, the murders being committed, are committed by persons who would have expected would be of a more reasonable mind in the domestic settings. And then we have those who go out and consume alcohol and lose their sanity, or lose that ability to be able to reason things out and end up killing others. And we have situations where friends on friends, where friends are killing friends, and these are the kidnapping and then later on found dead cases. Most of these cases are where friends take a friend because of some internal issue, and then they go and kill them and dispose of their bodies. And so these are new things for us, and we have to find ways as to how we can address these issues. And I have Mr. Dawson here, who is the commander of Belize City and Belize District, and I must commend him and his officers for the good work that they have done this year, because again, Belize District used to be the focus of attention in terms of having over 70% of the country's murder. And this year, Belize District do not have that amount. We, in Belize District, is actually the saving grace in terms of the other regions being up, like for example, the Cayo region is up by 100% where murders are concerned.
Yeah.
And so the reduction that we enjoyed in Belize District is observed by the Cayo region. And then we also have Stan Creek District, the southern region, which again is up in murders, I think, by 2 compared to last year. But then also we have the northern region, which is also down by almost 50%. So we have Belize, the eastern region and the northern region that perform extremely well this year. And then those were the 2 regions that used to be up there with murders. And then now we have the western region and the southern region that are up with murders. And so
let me interject and ask a question quickly. You've identified the Cayo District or the western jurisdiction as having gone up 100% in terms of acts of violence pertaining to murders. Does this mean then that we're now going to see a deployment of additional officers in that area? Or how do you propose to police such an expansive, largest district in the country?
Well, indeed, yes, we have to look at our deployment in the Cayo region because, again, the Cayo District is second to Belize District in population. And like you rightly said, it's the largest district in the country in terms of land mass.
Yeah.
And so the people of the Cayo region are spread out and have many remote areas like the Billy White, the Duck Run areas, the France Eddy areas. These are areas that we do not have police officers stationed within those areas.
Yeah.
And again, the France Eddy area has been a very problematic area for us this year in terms of the violent nature of crime between the Central American immigrants who are living within that area. Just last week, we have a murder there over jealousy. One man killed another man over a woman. You know, so we have to find ways as to how we can go into those areas more often with a view to see how we can police it to try to keep the crime down at a minimal. Yes, I know from the operations desk, Mr. Vidal has done a lot in terms of putting out operation teams in the different remote areas, going after persons who we believe are involved in criminal activities, and that have also helped us significantly. But again, most of our focus have been in Belize District and Belize City in particular, because we're trying to see how we could contain the gang violence, believing that by containing the gang violence, we would have a significant reduction in the murder count. But we contain that, and then we see the alcohol-related, the domestic-related just went up. So we have to find a way how to deal with those other types of murders.
You know, Commissioner, I think you started off saying something very important, and I think we can all be in agreement. It is difficult times, I think, for the country in looking at the situation of crime, and it was a job that you took on knowing that this was going to be a very arduous task. I appreciate the talk about numbers, and I think that, you know, we can only measure where we go based on numbers. And while you talk of a reduction in Belize District and an increase in other places, there's one question I have in terms of, are we looking at a reduction or are we looking at displacement? Because we do have gang-related murders in Dangriga, we have gang-related murders in other districts. And in fact, sometimes I think we've even connected some of these people in your very reports back to Belize City. So is it that we have reduced the numbers in Belize, or have these criminal elements moved beyond this district?
Marlene, I don't think it is displacement, and for the simple fact that if you had heard what I said to the people of Dangriga when I had the town hall here, that the crimes being committed in Dangriga, the murders, were committed by people from Dangriga. Yes, some of them may have moved to Belize City for a year or two and then go back to Dangriga. That does not make them Belize City. They are from Dangriga. And again, if we look at most of the gang elements in Belize City, they're not from Belize City. They are from our district. Many of the gang people in Belize City are from Dangriga, Gales Point, Manante, Punta Gorda, and other little villages outside of Belize City. And they moved to Belize City, and probably they got that influence from leaders in Belize City. But at the end of the day, they are not from Belize City, they are from our district. So it's just a matter of some of them going back home, but that does not make it...
And take the culture with them, the gang culture.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that brings me to another question, because if we're talking numbers, one of the numbers I'm interested in is what has happened in 2019 in terms of reinforcement of forces? Because to be fair to you, we can keep on looking at the police department and saying, what are you doing? How are you going to fix crime or reduce crime? But are you being given the resources? Have you gotten more officers? Have you instituted new strategies and got funding for that as well, and specialized units?
Yes.
Tell me the growth in the offices. Start there.
The truth is, we would never have all the resources that we need.
Agree.
But at the end of the day, we do appreciate the fact that the government do try, and we have a minister who is very much involved in trying to get us what we need to be able to do our duties. Yes, the numbers are not where we want it to be.
Yeah.
I always try to compare us to the Bahamas. Bahamas population is little less than Belize's population, and the Bahamas police force have a total of 3,000 police officers plus 2,000 tourism police officers. So a total of 5,000 police officers are in Bahamas.
Yeah.
For us in Belize, we have 2,200 police officers that include tourism police officers. So our numbers is not where we want it to be.
Yeah.
We currently have a recruit squad in training. They're currently out doing on-the-job training, and they're deployed across the country for the
So
for 3
by what
months.
percentage would you say the force has increased in this year?
Has increased this year.
Yeah.
We have decreased this year. We're hoping that we'll get that increase next year when the recruits pass out.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that we have not.
The size of the force decreased
Yes.
in 2019.
We have not had, prior to this recruitment that we have in training, we have not had any recruit squad in over 3 years.
Okay.
So the department numbers was depleting. So we're now trying to bring it up with the recruit squad.
Is
that
there
we
a
have
reason?
in
This
training.
is a critical. Go ahead.
Is there a reason why over the past 3 years you haven't been able to grow your numbers?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the government financial situation. So, but we try to, as best as we can, do more with less. But it is difficult because when it comes to policing, we have to stretch ourselves across the country. And I firmly believe that these one-man police stations we have in the different rural areas, we need to evolve from that. We have surpassed those now. So my directive is that there'll be no more one-man substation. Each substation outside in the rural areas will have a minimum of 2 police officers.
Commissioner,
That way they can patrol together.
You are highlighting a very critical issue that perhaps we've missed over the course of time. We have been seeing a very steady issue in crime, a very consistent public outcry about crime, but with a decrease in the force and no growth in the past 3 years, clearly you were not given the additional resources. And just to be clear, have you made a request for additional manpower?
Well, I was not the commissioner then. When I became commissioner, I made the request, and I got the approval for 1 recruit squad. The approval was for 190. We ended up taking 217. And even though it took more than the approved number, there was no issue with it. We have currently 213 in training. So we're hoping that we'll get it at least 210. And with that should help us significantly in terms
Let me
of
ask a
making up
question
our
here
numbers.
and bring in ACP Dawson. All of what we're discussing speaks to citizen security. And while if we're saying that the numbers in Belize City have gone down in terms of murder, the question I would want to ask you, are Belize City residents any safer today than they were a year ago or 2 years ago?
I believe that what we are doing in the street, we continue to study the trend of crime, and we try to put the police where the most needed based on trend and pattern. And we hope that by doing so, the citizens will at the same time look at their very own safety and assist the police as best as they could, and so that we could assist them in return. So that would make them as safe as we could make them.
Do you see the involvement in more and more residents in terms of working with the police? Because there's always this sort of stigma, or there's this position where we don't cooperate, or that is them this is us. Has there been sort of a breaking of that barrier where you now see persons working closer with the department?
For the last 10 months, thereabout, we have seen some breakthrough. It's not as fast or as much as we wanted. I know it will take some time because that confidence have to build back.
Yeah.
It will take some time, and it's coming around. It's coming around slowly. We have been getting some assistance lately.
From looking at 2019, what number of, and I don't know if you keep these statistics, but I'll venture to ask, from the crimes that have been committed, how many charges have been levied?
We do have that stats, but I do not have it on hand. When we release our overall crime statistics for the year, we'll include those in it. But I am sure that our arrest figures is also up compared to last year.
Yeah. What was it last year?
I do not remember offhand either.
Do you feel that we're doing well in that department?
Well, not as well as we'd want to do. But again, as I've always said, an investigation is only as good as the witnesses who cooperate with the police. And we still have that issue where witnesses are reluctant to come forward or to even give statements to the police. And so while we may know who commit many of the crimes, we are unable to prosecute them due to lack of witness cooperation.
And moving from charges to actual convictions, do we have those numbers?
Again, we should be having some of those as it relates to the magistrate court level that the police prosecutes. When it comes to the Supreme Court level, that is prosecuted by the DPP office. But again, I'm sure that you would know, you have heard that we have had many convictions this year for murders. So the outcry out there was that the murder conviction was 3%, which had never been so. It has always been above 3%. But this year, I am sure that the numbers of conviction will be more compared to last year.
What was last year's conviction?
Even with the summary offenses, we have seen increase, and a large increase in conviction, because we do what we call a ComStat on a monthly basis, and that include our statistic for conviction. And every month we see an increase in conviction. So I'm sure at the end of the year we will see an increase in conviction.
In convictions.
But
we definitely look forward to those numbers because I think oftentimes we isolate numbers, and especially looking at the murder count. And I personally have not been interested in talking about how many people have lost their lives 1 year. I think we need to look at where we are globally. And we know that even if there is a reduction by 10, we will still be one of the top countries. We'll have one of the highest murder rate per capita in the world again. Can we agree to that?
Well, that is true. We'll be up there, yes.
We were at 35
yes.
per 100,000
yes.
last year. I think that had made us third at one point?
It's not third, no.
Well, I'll go back and check. I don't have my numbers with me, but that's one of the things that I monitor regularly because we can talk about the number of murders, but I think when we look at where we are and compared to the rest of the world, some countries have as low as 6 or 10
but
per 100,000.
Again, to Marlene, while many may want to impute that to the police, it is not the police, it is society.
No, definitely. I'm not saying the police are out there who are committing these murders.
I said some people may want to.
You are our remedy to the situation.
No, not fully. We are your remedy to find the persons who commit them. Yes, we do.
But you do have a level of protection.
Yes, let me explain again, because there is a misconception. Many people believe that the police can stop murders. And as I've said before, many of the murders being committed are not those that the police can readily prevent. And those are the ones that are committed in the domestic setting, those from alcohol. And so if we want to see a reduction in our murder count, we really need to look at how we as a society behave, our lifestyle. When you look at the countries that have the lowest murder count in the world, you look at how they live, the social environment in terms of alcohol, nightlife, and these sort of things. You will see that it is very limited. We in Belize, we want to drink all the alcohol in the world, We want to party all day, all night, and get drink to the extent that we don't even know ourselves. And then when that occurs, then we go out and do things that we would normally do, but they don't have the alcohol, and expect that the police will be there to monitor you.
See,
It cannot work.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I've always asked the question, if when a crime is committed, is there always a look into what type of drug or drinking they may have been exposed to before that? And that goes across the board, because we do have to look at those numbers. That is a situation that goes untold. But as the commissioner, the man at the helm, have you sat down with the relevant authorities to try to get this issue under control? Let me complete it. We have a National Drug Abuse Control Council that's under the Ministry of Health that is to work with addictions. We have looking at the liquor licensing that takes place. And we can look in the city, but we know the problem is bigger in smaller villages, where in fact that might be the only revenue going into the village. We can look at how much alcohol is being brought in. We can look at consumption levels. Have you taken this conversation beyond saying, oh, well, you know, it's alcohol induced, but to another level where we can work together and address it?
Marlene.
And I know it's a highly political issue.
No,
but
I have. If you recall, I think it was in the month of September, I met with all the liquor licensing board chairman and the mayors. Well, not all the mayors were present, but those majority of them were. And I tried as best as I can to collaborate with them, explain to them what's the situation, give them the figures. And at the meeting, they all said, we're going to work together, we'll work with you. And after the meeting was over and they went back to respective jurisdiction, they went right back to their old selves again. The issue...
Have we cracked down on public drinking?
Yes, we do that a lot. Mr. Dawson will tell you that every day we're out there enforcing the law where public drinking is concerned. But again, there is some reluctance on some police officers to prosecute those persons who are public drinking, but would just discourage them. And we have said to them, we need to go beyond discouraging and start prosecuting people for it. And I listened earlier to yourself and Isani, as you were discussing this issue as it relates to entitlement, where people walk around believe that they're entitled to do certain things. And Isani was right, in the sense that many people who you looked at as influential people, they are the ones who want to park the vehicle on the roadside with the liquor on top of the vehicle and drinking. And when the police go after them, they want to call me. Commissioner, the police, I don't allow abiding. It's not because if you are law abiding, I tell them the police have a job to do. I'm not going to interfere. Because at the end of the day, I cannot be telling my officers to enforce the law, and then when they do it, I tell them not to do it. You know, and some of them got upset, but at the end of the day, they believe that because they are up there in society, they are entitled to sit or stand on the street corner and drink the alcohol, and the police should not tell them anything. And we cannot be like that. Yeah. It needs to change.
May I ask a question from another? And I totally agree with you in terms of the position you are taking. However, another question would be, when you look at cracking down on quality of life situations, because I think public drinking falls within that
quality
scope,
of life, yeah.
Right? You would encourage your officers to proceed with prosecuting these quality of life offenses. And we're looking at a system where we're already complaining of a heavy backlog and what have you, or the judicial system being bogged down by all of these, what I would call trivial matters. I hate to have to downplay it like that, but when you look at a $25 fine versus getting to the bottom of a more heavier offense, then one certainly outweighs the other. Do you think that by going in that direction, where you're now encouraging these men and women to proceed with charging and going to the magistrate's court to follow through, would only serve to weigh down an already weighted down system?
Majority of our major incident stem from minor incidents. Majority from murder, look at them. Murder, Mr. X-ray kill. Where was he? Was in front of a Chinese drinking a Guinness. Who killed him? Somebody came on a bicycle with a light, with a bell, and shoot him. If the police had arrested public drinking and deal with that bicycle offense, we wouldn't have that murder. So we looking at the more to stop the petty offense, and if we could cut the petty offense at that level, we would have no major ones.
I read a post on Facebook the other day, and the post said, Chester Williams want to focus and harass people for public drinking and loitering. You need to go stop the murders them. Dude, that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because like Mr. Dawson said, 90% of our murders that occur, you ask the question, where was the victim? The answer is on the street drinking.
As we describe as socializing.
Yes, exactly.
Socializing with friends,
Right.
very common term we use in the news, when we can just say they were drinking.
You understand me?
But the issue I'm getting back at too is, you know, he spoke of, spoke of police officers pursuing quality of life crimes. But the first question you will have to answer is, are you keeping your police officers accountable?
Yes, we do. And
because you do know that there's a heavy drinking culture. And this is anecdotal. I don't have the facts, but I'm sure you would agree. There's a heavy drinking culture among people with high stress jobs, police officers included.
Well, Marlene, I have a very high stress job. I can't tell you how alcohol tastes.
But you're an isolated case. And I mean, you are welcome to disagree with me, but would you say that
I
there
do
is?
agree with you. It is true. And we try as best as we can to see what we can do for our officers. Just over the weekend, we had a situation in Punta Gorda where a police officer was in a bar drinking, and other police officers went because they got a call, and they detained the policeman. And his response to the officers who went for him was, well, you're lucky when you come for me because I was just about to go home and I'm going to shoot my wife. Right? So that's a serious matter. And so I have directed the officer in charge of Punta Gorda to have kept him in custody over the weekend. And then we'll see what we can do this morning to arrange some sort of counseling for him. And as a commissioner, I can add a mandatory counseling. So that is what we're going to do in this case, that he must undergo certain hours of mandatory counseling before he'll be allowed to hold a firearm again, if any at all. But like you said, Marlene, it is indeed stressful for many of our officers, and sometimes the weight that is on our shoulder is overlooked by the public because we have to deal with all sorts of things. Yeah. And as a commissioner, sometimes I wish I wouldn't have to deal with police issues and try to focus more on the public issues in terms of strategizing to fight crime. Yeah. But I have to find myself dealing with both. Yeah. And the police issues do take away a lot from my time in terms of focusing on crime fighting strategies. But we try to find ways and means how we can still deal with both of them without taking too much from either one.
At the end of this year, we start a brand new decade. Not just a new year, a brand new decade. And we can sit here and talk of the discrepancy of 1, 2 human beings who have died or lost their life. Or we can talk about what will be done differently to reduce the number of families who have to go through that devastating loss, for whatever reason. You have highlighted, I think, what is a critical issue of being under-resourced. And while you are saying we're looking at, what, 300, maybe about 300 more officers coming out into the force, I'm sure you would agree that's not enough.
No, it will not be enough.
Moving forward, what are we going to be doing differently about crime? The criminal elements they've devolved into a whole new manner of committing crimes, going into homes when people are there, going in and robbing and raping as well, going in when there's a security camera or a security guard. All the protective measures that the public has thought would be enough is no longer enough. So if their methodology is changing, I would want to believe that our crime fighting strategies are changing as well.
Yes, of course. We do have to make adjustments moving into next year. And I think for the most part, what we need to do in the districts is to replicate what we're doing in Belize City. Because in Belize City, it is working. Yes, we can still tweak around our Belize City strategy to make it more better. But our district, we need to look seriously in terms of our deployment. One, is the number of officers we have in the districts adequate to police their respective area? The answer is no. And so we have to look at that. In our budget for next year, we have included another recruit squad. We're hoping that that will be approved. And if approved, then we can take in another maybe 190 police officers to add to our numbers. But in the time being, we have to ensure that we constantly go at those issues that are creating the problem for us. The alcohol, the domestic, and the gang issues. We have to remain on those, but tweak it more, and I think that we need to be more forceful with the alcohol issue, because that is the main issue. And working more closely with the other organizations like NDAC, Women's Department. I must say that the Special Envoy have been right there with us, pretty much on board in terms of looking at issues involving families and women and children. And she is very much concerned. If a matter of fact, we're meeting again, I think early January, the 9th of January to be exact, I think, to discuss the whole issue as it relates to the cybercrime legislation and to see how we can do more to protect families. And so she have also brought along with her the Ministry of Human Development, Ms. Judith Alpuche, who again, I must say, is very much involved in terms of looking at the family issues. Yes, there is more that we can garner from the Ministry of Human Development, and I'm hoping that next year we'll see more coming out of them in terms of working with us to be able to address the issues in a family setting, because we have to really and truly address the issue of domestic violence.
All right. And tips for the Christmas season. We know this is I know we're running out of time. This is a time where we see a spike in particular crimes, and the police department always offers public advice ahead of the season. But catch us up, of course, things we can do to keep ourselves a bit safer in our homes as we move around the country.
We continue to say to people, you buy these new equipment, these new gadgets, avoid throwing the box or the container in front of your homes. You attract these, I see a big 50-inch television set box in front of the home. I know that piece of item is in that home, Try to avoid taking out large sum of money. This time and age, I think we are well within that card system, that credit card.
Yeah.
You put your money into the card, you pay the money to the card, and use the card, it's much safer.
Yeah.
Again, jewelries, try not to expose as much as you want to. Say, I buy my piece of jewelry to expose it, can attract, a criminal, Expensive phones, pulling out in isolated areas. These things do, don't leave your gift bag on your car seat, Try and park your car in areas where people are and not in isolated areas.
Where it's well lit as well.
Where it's lighted,
And we also encourage you that when you go to the bank, do not walk out with your cash in hand, and try to go and shop in groups, right? Don't go by yourself, especially if you're going in a remote area. So those are things that we try to encourage. But just to add a bit more, Marlene, we have the Safe City project that we're doing through BTL in terms of we're looking at the cameraizing the city, adding more to what we already have in existence. And that is going well for us. We will be having the facial recognition feature, the vehicle license plate reader as well. And that will go a long way with us in terms of fighting crime. We also have the Taiwan project coming up very shortly. We're getting 100 cameras from Taiwan as well. And those cameras will also have those features. So we'll have deployed across Belize City a number of cameras that will be able to help us to deal more with the criminal elements. And we want to see how we can replicate that in the districts. The system through BTL will also be open to the public in a sense that business places or even private homeowners can go to detail and they can purchase the camera, and it is placed in front of their home, and you just pay a fee to detail, right? So again, that's another added feature that will come with the Safe City projects, and that will be done not only in Belize City, but anywhere across the country. So I want to encourage business places and even private homeowners who may have the means that they can also tap into the Safe City project with a view to see how they can work with us in making their environment safe. The minister has said that 2019 was the year of technology for the police, and indeed we have achieved a lot in terms of technology, but not where we want to be as yet. We still have a lot more to do. And he has said to me just last week, he said, Commissioner, 2020, we need to continue to focus on technology to see how we can bring the police department more up to date where technology is concerned. So I'm grateful to see that, yes, through his ministry, he's also helping us with a view to see how we can use technology more. And we're also seeing that more and more we're sending out DNA samples abroad to deal with cases, complex cases, and as much as it is costly for us, we find the means to still send them, because at the end of the day, what we want is to ensure that we can prosecute successfully persons who are accused of committing crime, especially now in the absence of that human element who want to come forward and give evidence before the court of law. So these are things that we'll continue to do next year with a view to see how we can make the residents of this country much safer.
Well, we want to thank you for coming in. We know you're very busy, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you too.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll have a conversation with author Delmer Zib. So please stay tuned.